Today we're going to be covering both the base deck and the Exiles and Partisans deck. We're going to be taking a look at all the bunny cards, and we are going to be ranking them. Our ambush can't really be compared. Dominance as well. Alright, so then I guess we'll start off with the items. It could be difficult between coins and tea, which is considered better. In a game with the Vagabond, I would feel much safer crafting coins than I would crafting tea, because the tea helps the Vagabond out tremendously. The coins help them out too, but not to the extent that tea does. However, root tea is one single mouse crafting cost, whereas the coins are 2 bunny cost. On the autumn map, there are more mouse spaces than any other space, and so I'm gonna say more often than not, root tea is the best item you can craft. 2 points for 1 crafting power, very efficient. The coins are right behind them, the bake sale. I'm just gonna look at the distribution here of items between boot and bag. It looks like there's 1 of each suit, so there's no difference there. There are 4 boot cards and 4 bag cards in the base deck, 1 of each suit including bird. And so with that in mind, knowing that mouse clearings are more plentiful, at least on the autumn map, clearing slots I should say, not clearings, then we will go ahead and award a slight advantage to the Smuggler's Trail since it is a mousecraft. Alright, now let's get on to the actual cards. I think it's easiest to start with what I know is really good and work down from there. So let's go ahead and start with Coffin Makers. Coffin Makers is a great card. Whenever any warriors would return to a supply, place them on this card instead. At the start of Birdsong, you score 1 point per 5 warriors here, and then return all warriors here to their supplies. So this is a great card to craft no matter what situation you're in, which is why it goes and takes its place among the S tiers as one of the chosen cards, just simply because you can just score passive points just by having it crafted. This is an Exiles and Partisans deck card for anyone who doesn't know, which means that Saboteurs is in the deck. So someone can use Saboteurs to force you to remove this card from your possession. Even with that in mind, I mean, that's necessary because this card is so strong. It's especially good on factions like aggressive birds with a commander, Vagabond. I'm sure it will be great on the Warlord when they show up, but really anyone can make use of this because all you have to do is craft it and watch the points roll in as warriors are removed from the board. It doesn't even have to be in battle, they just have to be returned to the supply. So Alliance organizes a warrior, that's going in the coffin for a turn. Corvids remove warrior to plot, going in the coffin for a turn. Okay, so then I'm going to go into my next S tier card. Is going to be Better Burrow Bank. At the start of Birdsong, you and another player draw a card. So Better Burrow Bank also costs 2 bunnies. So actually, as a matter of fact, I was going to put Better Burrow Bank at S tier simply by virtue of being a way for you to draw a card, but it's simply outclassed by Charm Offensive, which allows you to, at the start of evening, draw a card and choose another player to score 1 point. So the trade-off here is with Charm Offensive, you are giving a player a point instead of a card, which can feel more impactful on the scoring of the game, but it costs 1 less rabbit, and you get to draw at the start of evening, as opposed to the start of Birdsong. So start of Birdsong is better for drawing after you've reached your hand limit, right? So if you draw at the start of evening, then you'll have to discard if you reach the hand limit. If you're drawing at the start of Birdsong, you won't have to do that. So the more that I think about it, the more these 2 cards are evenly matched. They're evenly matched cards here. Okay, well then I think because of that trade-off, but even so, like, being 1 whole, like, it's much harder to get 2 bunny crafting power down for some factions than it is to get 1, right? Cats with 1 bunny workshop can have Charm Offensive, which is really nice for them. Getting 2 crafting places is hard. Bunny is the suit with the fewest build slots open on the autumn map, and we're going to use that as a reference because with randomized clearings you're never going to be able to tell. So that's our one way of saying that, okay, it's harder to get a rabbit crafting slot than it is to get a fox slot than it is to get a mouse slot, mouse being the easiest to get. I think that means Charm Offensive simply outclasses it, because Coffin Makers is an S tier despite the 2 costs, because when you can craft it, you always will, and it's always good. And when you can craft Better Burrow Bank, you always will, and it's always good. But it's not an S tier card. No, it's just outclassed by Charm Offensive. That's all there is to it. And then let's go into our next S tier. We got to make a decision here. Let me review Swap Meet. Once in Birdsong, may take a random card from another player and then give them a card. And that card can be the same card that you just received from their hand. So this is the poor man's card drawing. You do have to then give a card away. So I think that makes it automatically worse than Charm Offensive and Better Burrow Bank, because even though you have the ability to directly harm a player rather than benefiting them, you also only get to replace 1 card, which is good. You usually have 1 card in your hand that you don't want, regardless of what faction you're playing. Maybe Lizards and Moles, where you're revealing cards, you have, carefully curated that hand of 5, and there's nothing really that you want to get rid of on a given turn, especially at the start of Birdsong. So yeah, I think that makes Swap Meet always good, because cards that give you more cards are always good. And this isn't giving you more cards per se, but it's allowing you to build the hand you want, which is always beneficial. So that makes this card always good, in my opinion. And then we're gonna go with another S tier. I don't think Command Warren can be an S tier, because by definition an S tier has to be like, if I get this card, I'm not gonna spend it for suit, I'm going to craft it. I think that's what, as I'm doing this, my definition is evolving to be. I get this card, that is what my priority is, crafting this card. And I don't think that's always the case with Command Warren. It's really good for cats and factions that are low on actions but would like to battle. It gives them a lot of options, sure. But for factions like the Woodland Alliance, where they're not battling very much at all, it's not too helpful. And I'm still going to throw it in always good, but I think now that I've thought about it, I'm going to put it below both Better Burrow Bank and Swap Meet, because the ability to improve your hand is really important in this game. But that being said, the ability to start a battle as a free action at the start of your daylight is also really good. I just don't think it makes it better than drawing, and I don't think it makes it S tier, now that I've gotten to think about it for a bit. Okay, moving on to situationally useful, Cobbler. Now, Cobbler is one that I'm sort of reluctant to put in situationally useful, but I think it's worse than Command Warren for pretty much every faction. This is tricky. This is harder than I thought it was going to be, I'm not going to lie. I don't think it belongs in the same tier as Command Warren is the thing. Because it's 1 move at the start of the evening, which I've crafted Cobbler and it's been useful sometimes. Most of the time I'll move 1 guy if I'm preparing something with Eyrie for the next turn that I can do, or I can use it as a free military operation with the Alliance. Vagabond could maybe sometimes use the Cobbler to escape, get 1 more clearings distance between them and whoever he's most afraid of hitting him. I don't know, it's only half a march for the cats. It's just not as good of an option to have available to you as Command Warren, I think, for the same crafting cost. I think it's just not as strong. Feel free to tell me why I'm wrong in the comments if you feel that is the case. Alright, up next we have Rabbit Partisans. In battle and rabbit clearings, you may deal 1 extra hit and then discard all your cards except rabbits. I'm going to go ahead and put this under situationally useful as well. I myself have not played nearly as many games with the Exiles and Partisans deck as I have with the base deck, because the Exiles and Partisans deck is not yet made its way to the digital version of Root. But when I have had the opportunity to play with the ENP deck, I haven't found myself in that situation where I want to use Partisans all that often. It's one extra hit, which in certain situations is great, but for so many factions, it can just devastate your hand. Like, you're never going to use this, I don't think, unless it's a last resort if you're playing Eyrie. You really don't want it as the Cats either, because you're discarding your bird cards. Both of those factions don't want to lose their bird cards. As the Alliance, I don't think they really need this either, because again, extra hit, do they need it that much? They're already dissuading factions from attacking them with guerrilla warfare. Vagabond, again, it's just okay. And now that I've said that, I don't think this belongs in the same tier as Cobbler. I think that brings it down to rarely useful. And I think the same goes for tunnels. You treat clearings with any of your crafting pieces as adjacent. This sounds really good on paper, and when I first saw this card I was like, whoa, that's so good. But in practice, there are very few opportunities to use it. Vagabond can't make use of this card. Alliance will never make use of this card because all their sympathy is adjacent unless it gets cut clean down the middle by someone. So again, situational. The Cats won't really make use of this too much unless they... No, because they're... Yeah, again, it's situational. Situational for birds as well, because how often are you going to find yourself not expanding, outwards naturally? If you do craft tunnels, I suppose you could go for an interesting strategy where you move the birds to one corner and build there, but like you should be building on the way, right? Unless you're just adding a ton of cards to move in your decree. It just doesn't seem that great. One use I do see it having is with the new Keepers in Iron, at least their current public version of them, because they can lay down their way stations wherever they want. They can encamp, and those are their crafting pieces, and so they can encamp on one side, encamp on the other side, and then move between them freely. That sounds pretty good. I haven't gotten the chance to play as the Badgers, the Keepers in Iron myself. I've played against them one time. It was a fun game. That was before they got changed though. Also could be useful for Corvids, just like switching Corvids, between plots to protect them, or to get those distant recruits, because you recruit spread out. When you discard a bunny card, when you discard a bunny card, you likely are recruiting 4 crows in very spread out locations, and then you can marshal them together, add a plot on each side of the board, and then muster them together one to the other. That seems decent. That's why I'm going to put it in rarely useful. I think they're good cards if you don't have the need to spend either Rabbit Partisans or Tunnels for suit, and you don't have any other use for your rabbit crafting this turn, any better use at all, then sure, go ahead, craft it. It could come in handy and help you win the game. It just hasn't happened for me personally yet. Okay, and now we come to the Controversy Maker, the Favor of the Rabbits. I don't think I can put this card in always good, right? Because it's definitely not always good for the Cats and the Birds, most notably. Because the Cats and the Birds, if they've established 3 bunny crafting pieces, especially in the case of the Birds, then that means they likely rule at least 2 or 3 bunny clearings. And so what is the Favor going to do? Maybe hit 1 or 2 clearings. It's much better for the Alliance or the Tinker / Adventurer Vagabond or the Otters or the Moles to craft this Favor. Moles to a lesser extent. So yeah, I think this goes under situational because it heavily depends. The usefulness heavily depends on which faction you're playing, because if you're playing Alliance and you craft a favor, not only do you get a ton of points from destroying the buildings and tokens, you blow up several clearings, likely removing martial law and clearing the way for you to spread more sympathy, scoring more points. And the Vagabond, you can just score a bunch of points, and if you're the Tinker, Day Labor, score a bunch of points. But if you're the Cats, the Birds, you're not really getting much out of it, and especially if you're the Cats, people can tell when you're gearing up for a favor. It's not the best because of that, so I'm going to go ahead and put it in situationally useful. And I think that is all that we have. Let's go ahead and just check the order. Do I think Coffin Makers is better than Charm Offensive? Yes. Do I think Better Burrow Bank is better than Swap Meet is better than Command Warren? Yes, maybe Swap Meet and Command Warren could switch, but I feel like the ability to modify your hand is just that strong. Cobbler is better than Favor of the Rabbits in terms of its consistency, I would say, among the factions. Rabbit Partisans is slightly more useful than Tunnels, I would agree with that, and I stand by the way I ranked the items in terms of how I ordered them, and the Ambush and Dominance cards do not get ranked. So there we go. That is my first card tier list. I plan to do this for the Mouse, Fox, and Bird cards as well. And who knows, if you guys like them, I might make one big video tiering all the cards among themselves, among each other, in their respective tiers, and finding out what truly is the best and the worst card in Root, in my opinion. Let me know in the comments if you disagree with me or if you agree with me, any opinions you have, and I will see you guys in the next video.